Penguin Random House Audio presents The Subplot, What China is Reading and Why It Matters, by Megan Walsh. Read for you by Nancy Wu. Introduction. The sky and ocean are crystal clear today, much too clear for poetry composition. Liu Cixin, The Poetry Cloud. In 2014, Chinese President Xi Jinping informed a room full of authors, artists, and filmmakers, without a hint of irony, that fine artworks should be like sunshine from blue sky and breeze in spring that will inspire minds, warm hearts, cultivate taste, and clean up undesirable work styles. Echoing Mao Zedong's famous 1942 talks at the Yan'an Forum on Literature and Art, in which artists were instructed to serve the people and the party, she clarified that modern art and literature needs to take patriotism as its muse, guiding the people to establish and adhere to correct views of history, the nation, the country, and culture. This unabashed request for art to project sunshine is no different from the Chinese Communist Party's impressive, if cavalier, efforts to artificially control the weather itself, from the media and government agencies characterizing smog as fog, to deploying anti-aircraft guns to fire chemical missiles into clouds during the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Blue skies could be the literal and figurative emblem of the government's drive to tell China's story well. And authors are expected to act much like a cloud-bursting machine, banishing shadows rather than seeking them out. China's authoritarian political climate, on the other hand, also known as the weather or the gray zone, is intentionally hazy. It shifts in severity according to the CCP's needs, often without warning, creating a disorientating psychological landscape for Chinese writers, captured in a short work by the avant-garde poet, essayist, and novelist Han Dong. It's foggy or smoky. Perhaps it's smog. No one's surprised by that. Even on a clear day, I can't see roadside trees and flowers clearly. Even if I see them, I don't remember them. Even if I remember them, I can't write about them. This well-documented climate of censorship and propaganda can make foreign readers rather snobby about Chinese literature, often without having read any of it. It's rare for English speakers to have heard of, let alone read, beyond such giants of Chinese literature as Lu Xun, Mu Yan, or Liu Cixin. And while it's not uncommon for translated fiction to struggle on English-language reading lists, it is impossible to ignore the fact that the whiff of censorship all too often reduces the arts in mainland China to an academic curio or a worthy totem of fearless political protest. As a result, Mu Yan's 2012 Nobel Prize in Literature was always going to be mired in some kind of controversy. The Chinese government celebrated his and China's international accolade, while critics in the West denounced Mu Yan's loyalty to the CCP. Salman Rushdie branded Mu Yan a patsy of the regime, and Herta Müller dismissed his prize as a catastrophe. But the response also highlighted the ways in which Western readers, much like Xi's blue sky imperatives, can also have intrusive and unrealistic political expectations for Chinese authors, especially those for whom banned in China is too often the baseline for what is and isn't worth reading. The assumption can be that those who don't openly challenge China's authoritarian system from within are apparatchiks, not artists. But the fact is that most Chinese writers who continue to live and work in mainland China write neither what their government nor foreign readers want or expect. And in our failure to engage with and enjoy Chinese fiction as it is, in all its forms, we misunderstand our own part in the complex and often fascinating realpolitik at its heart. This intrusive relationship between grand and personal narratives. There's much to learn from Chinese writers who understand and illuminate the complex relationship between art and politics, one that is increasingly shaping Western artistic discourse. In the last 100 years, Chinese fiction has been asked to do a lot of heavy lifting. At the turn of the 20th century, reformist Lianke famously declared that renovating Chinese fiction would renovate the people. His call was answered by the exhilarating anti-imperialist May 4th movement of the 1920s, which promoted vernacular Chinese and literary realism as iconoclastic ways to modernize China and the nation's consciousness. From this point on, literature and the arts increasingly played the part of agitator, in particular to stir up resistance to the Japanese invasion, the KMT-led nationalist government, and colonial influence in treaty port cities. Then, under Mao, of course, literature became a beast of burden for socialist propaganda, generating new genres written for the first time by workers and peasants. Mass book banning and burning during the Cultural Revolution halted China's genuine homegrown literary production for years. Contraband foreign novels by writers like Alexander Dumas, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Charles Dickens, Jorge Luis Borges, and William Faulkner became part of an organic, underground literary canon. Unsurprisingly, by the time of the Cultural Revolution, only one writer was sufficiently sunny: Mao himself. Writers in the early years of reform and opening up, a series of economic initiatives instigated in 1978 by Mao's eventual successor, Deng Xiaoping, flooded the void with new genres and experimental fiction. But this literary Wild West was brought to heel with the 1989 crackdown and massacre at Tiananmen Square. Understandably, this century of literary boom and bust has left noticeable scars on China's publishing landscape. Unable to develop continuously and organically, much of China's homegrown fiction is reactive by nature. It carries the ghostly watermark of its time. As a result, the importance and fragility of homegrown fiction should not be taken for granted. Modern Chinese fiction is a mixture of staggering invention, bravery, and humanity, as well as soul-crushing submission and pragmatism, a confusing and intricate tapestry that offers a beguiling impression of Chinese society itself. In the last decade, since Mo Yan's Nobel Prize, literature has been given a vague new responsibility: to serve Xi Jinping's much-vaunted, largely economic project of national rejuvenation, the China Dream. This dream is forecast to come true imminently when China's per capita GDP reaches $10,000, the benchmark for a moderately prosperous Xiaokang society. Xiaokang is itself a literary term, literally meaning small comfort, and dates back 2,000 years to the Book of Songs and the Book of Rites, classics of Chinese poetry. It is seen as the prelude in Confucianism to Da Tong, or Great Harmony. Proof, perhaps, that while the leadership attempts to steer writers toward its desired policy goals, literature can have a lasting influence on the nation's political direction without even trying. And a reminder that economic growth requires shared cultural touchstones to translate individual prosperity into a national narrative. Nevertheless, while China's spectacular era of economic, technological, and scientific advancement has seen the emergence of a booming mainstream consumer-driven film, TV, and online industry, the publishing world hasn't been able to keep up. Give a quick glance at the last 3 years of China's bestseller charts, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that little had been written in the last 3 decades. The majority of titles are Chinese classics on school curricula, old novels resurrected by TV adaptations, and the odd, unexpected foreign import, Keigo Higashino's Japanese magical realism mysteries, and little-known Scottish writer Claire McFall's young adult novels both have permanent top 20 rankings. But this official picture is misleading, largely due to the reluctance or inability of publishers and booksellers to take risks on much of what is being written. Like all cultural sectors, they are regulated by the state. The General Administration of Press and Publications, GAPP, which is
Sample complete. Ready to continue?